SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 359. I am your host, who is not, unfortunately, made of cardboard today, Spencer Presley. And joining me is someone I have tricked into coming onto the show. Ross, from many, many things card-related, is here. PTCG Radio, that never gets to be a tongue twister, or you may know him from Wossy Plays on YouTube. Ross, unfortunately, I've tricked you into coming on here. This is actually an intervention from the Digimon card game community. We're holding you hostage. We're wondering where our news videos are, what's going on. Do we need to send money to someone? Why have you abandoned us in our time of need?
So I know I get every couple of weeks. I do get this question every few weeks. I feel bad about it because I went hard on Digimon when it came out. I was covering it.
You told us I'm coming. I'm gonna go out. I've got to get a couple of drinks. I'll be right back. I'm getting some milk. Don't worry, kids.
I'll tell you how hard I went on Digimon at the beginning. I went to my niece's birthday party, and it's in this big hall. There's bouncy castles and all of that. And then, as I'm there, I get an email notification that Booster 0.0, that first promo pack, the Japanese version, has gone up for pre-order. So I'm there at my niece's birthday party, ignoring all my family, pre-ordering Booster 0.0 on my phone. And I'm like, I'll be there in a minute. I'm doing something really important.
Yeah, it's important, yeah.
And so, I went hard on Digimon at the beginning, but I mean, essentially, so Wossy Plays, it's gone through a few iterations. It started off as Keyforge and Transformers and Marvel Champions, and then Digimon came along. And essentially, Digimon got a little bit bloated for me in terms of I was finding it harder to keep up with the metagame, and I wasn't enjoying playing it as much as I used to. And at the same time, the video views started dropping, and then other games like One Piece came in. And unfortunately, with Wossy Plays, it's a kind of channel where I kind of have to go where the views are and where the games are. And essentially, Digimon was doing that thing, and I don't think this is bad at all. Digimon has leveled out. It's not a huge game, and I don't think it's going to be a huge game. It's not going to be One Piece or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. But it's in no danger of dropping off the map anytime soon. It's kind of found its niche and going quite nicely, which is great for people who want to kind of sit and enjoy playing the game, and much less good for content creators who are looking to kind of build channels and keep growing because those games aren't given the growth. And look, I'm still picking up Digimon stuff here and there. I'm still playing the game here and there. I've not abandoned it completely. But the problem is I've lost my niche with Digimon. Whereas I used to be the news guy, if I dropped in now, it would be for occasional news videos. But I'm no longer the news guy, so it's that's just a really long explanation of being it got away from me a little bit, and there were other games demanding my time. But I love Digimon. I love the IP. I love the game. I've not gotten rid of any of my Digimon stuff, which I cannot say about other card games I've stopped covering. There was one card game that, well, I'm just going to name it. It's Transformers. I loved Transformers.
I don't know why I was gonna be like, does it rhyme with Zetazu?
It does not. And Transformers, man. Transformers was so good at the beginning, and Wizards was so good. And without getting into too many details, I really soured on that game towards the end. And when that game finished, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to stop covering this now. And I've kept a few bits, but I largely got rid of most of my Transformers stuff. That's not where I am with Digimon. I love Digimon. And it really, it makes me genuinely happy to know there are people in the community being like, where are our Digimon videos? I'm not ruling out coming back and covering it, but essentially too many people stopped watching is the short answer.
Can I just say, that was way more of a serious answer than you deserve to give me for that one. So funnily enough, Digimon is actually how I found out about you.
It's a good game.
Digimon, I've had a various love affairs with TCGs over the years. I've been into them pretty much most of my life, but really actively playing or spending money on it wise, it's kind of come and gone over the years, and I've talked about that here on the show. But for whatever reason, during that kind of like 2020 boom of card games, it got two things to happen. One, Pokemon, unsurprisingly, got my wife really into cards, which was funny because she had never, ever done anything Pokemon. No games, no show, no nothing. She just would see people opening packs and was like, I want to buy packs. And just to let you know how much of a problem it was, I found out about this after like multiple months of her buying stuff behind my back. she would like go to the store to buy like groceries or whatever, or go to Target, and would just like find Pokemon packs or whatever and just like open a box in the car and just like keep her hits to herself. And then what was funny was when I found out, I wasn't even mad because she'd been buying cards. I was mad because it was like, well, I would have liked to watch you open open them.
That's important. Just let me join in.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to be a part of it. I just want to watch. I can just sit in the corner while you open your ETB without me. And after she had done that, I had like been like, I've kind of been itching to like get into something, but even back in like 2020, I wasn't sure what I really wanted to play. And I think somewhere around either late 2020 or 21 was when they started stocking Digimon on shelves. And I was like, oh, this is a problem. Because I'm like, I can say no to Yu-Gi-Oh! I can say no to Pokemon. I can very easily say no to Magic just from like what I grew up playing. And the like sicko kid in me, just like I couldn't say no to it. And it was the most nostalgic set I got into. I started getting into it with EX1. Like that is the most like nostalgia baity set ever.
Oh yeah, that was full on. That was just like, hey, remember the old Digimon card game?
Exactly.
We've done that again.
Exactly. Which was always so funny because the original Digimon card game is one of my favorites. That is a card game everybody remembers, but no one played. They may say they played it, no one played it. It was like the old, like that and the old Dragon Ball card game nobody ever played that I have ever seen in my life. And I got into that, and I was either looking up stuff for new sets or something, and your videos came up or were like suggested, and I eventually hate subscribed, not because of your videos, but what was funny was like, I have this really bad habit of I'm very slow to subscribing to anybody. But if I finally get a video that pops up on my recommendation enough, or your new video, because YouTube, even if I'm not subscribed to you, it'll be like, oh, well, hey, this channel you watched once had another video come up. Watch this one, watch this one, watch this one. I finally subscribed to it, and I've probably been subscribed to you for maybe like 2.5, 3 years at this point. And one day during something, it might have been like One Piece or something related, you were like, oh, I made a tweet or I did something on Twitter, and I looked up your Twitter, and for some reason, I think you must have accidentally followed our podcast account. I had found you were following me, and I was like, what are the chances that how have you found my thing forward? So one of my first real question I have to now ask you is, how did you come to subscribing to, or not subscribing, but following the podcast on Twitter?
I love Persona. Like the SMT generally, I'm getting more into as time goes by, but me and Persona, I was trying to figure this one out earlier in case you asked years-wise. I think we're talking about 2015-ish when I first got into Persona. And so I'm looking a lot of this Persona stuff up online. And in the same way, like, all right, I'm going to go off on tangents here. So I'm picking my kid up from school the other day, and some random dad comes up to me, and he's just kind of like, oh, I've seen you always wearing Pokemon gear, because I'm always on brand. He's like, I see you always wearing Pokemon gear. Like, oh, I just wanted to kind of say, hey. And he was like, oh, you should check out my Instagram. I do Pokemon stuff on Instagram. And I checked him out, and he's got like 3,500 followers. He's doing all right. And my wife said to me, like, well, did you tell him who you were in terms of Pokemon? And I was like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm not the kind of guy that's like, hi, random dad at school. Have you seen my Pokemon channel? I can't do that. That feels weird. But the way I described it to my wife was, if he's seriously into Pokemon, he kind of has to come across me at some point because I'm too out there. And that's essentially where you are at this point. Like, I could be subscribed to you on Twitter or not, I'd be following you. But if I'm looking up Persona stuff, you're coming across my feed pretty regularly, whether I like it or not. So, lean into it.
I relate to that way too much. There's always like funny moments of like doing this comes up especially a lot whenever like I'll go to conventions or stuff, and I'll be around people who are either very obviously Persona fans or SMT or even just like Atlas fans,
Yeah.
where like I'll go up to them and I'll be like, "Oh, hey, can I get a picture?" Or like, "I think this is really cool." I'm never the first one to advertise myself. I'm the worst advertiser of my own show for like the last 10 plus years of doing it. It's just because like there's not a natural way for me to be like, oh, I can't help but notice you like this. Well, if you would like to hear more of me, please find my
It's
podcast.
weird,
The
right?
funny one though, it is a little bit weird, but like what's funny is I've had a few times this has happened. I've made so many friends from starting this community and the show over the years, and I love it. It's so fun. I have a handful of friends though that listened and never told me till I found out years later. And it was just so funny. Of like, there was a guy I went to school with. I took Japanese with him, and maybe a year after we graduated and stopped talking as regularly as when I started doing the show. And like 5 plus years later, I found out he'd like shown up to one of our live shows. It's just I was so befuddled because I was like, in my head I'm like, oh well, why didn't you say something? But then I'm also like, well, if I listened to one of my friends' things, I probably wouldn't be like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, guy I went to school with, I'm your number one fan. Oh, thanks, guy I went to school with.
Yeah, I feel that. So I've got in a couple of weeks, we got the Pokemon European Championships, and I'm on the casting team for that, and it's going to be lots of fun. I love Euros; it's so good. But there's a weird thing going on this year, and like I don't really get nervous casting at all. I've done the World Championships 3 times in a row. I've done the finals twice. And at Worlds, it's really fun because they put the casting desk out on the show floor rather than like hidden backstage. So you're not just kind of casting what you know is a really important match. There's a live crowd. And for Worlds finals, that crowd is completely full. They're really into it. Like if there was ever going to be nerves, it would be there. There's no nerves. I'm very comfortable in that situation because this is what I do. But at EUIC this year, Pokemon have set something up. I'm doing my first ever official meet and greet. There is a 1 hour slot on the Sunday of European Championships where they're setting up like a table on like near the stage, and people are going to queue up and come and say hello. And I am legitimately terrified that I'm going to sit there for an hour and no one is going to come and see me. And it's going to be the most embarrassing moment of my entire life.
We'll
So
have a TikTok. There'll be someone who was attending, and it'll be that wide shot of like everyone else who's got a massive line, and it's just
that's
you
my point.
adjusting the.
Like once a week, you'll see a story on Facebook or Twitter of like some author who did a book signing and 0 people turned up, and I'm like, that's gonna be me.
See, what you need to do though is that when you go in expecting no one to show up, it then makes everyone who says hi to you like it means 1,000 times more.
Oh yeah. And to be fair, like if ever there were going to be people that actually wanted to come and say hello, it would be at a big Pokemon event. But it's just you say about kind of bridging that gap to actually saying hello to people. Well, I'm having it set up in an official way, and it's just the whole thing. The thought of it makes me very uncomfortable because it's so out of my comfort zone. I'm like, just put me on a stage talking to like a couple thousand people. I'll be fine. Don't make me sit and like hope people come and say hello. That's not it.
No, I 100% get that because one of the things that is always so jarring to me is like I've done like shows with like various hundreds of people and everything like watching live. I love doing stuff live. But the funny one is like I've had random moments of like people will be like, "Oh, can you sign this?" Thankfully I am not a good-looking man at all. No one has ever asked me for a picture, so that's great. But I've had like a couple of times where people are like, "Oh my god, could you sign this?" I'm like, "I need you to know, I am lowering the value on whatever I'm touching with a marker. It is you are not helping yourself at all." But it's always like funny when those things do happen because I think like specifically of other moments of like going to like shows or conventions. It's become so common now that I know I'm in the minority, but like like if you go to a meet and greet line for like a star or like a voice actor, like I'd say 9 out of 10 times it's like, oh well, here's the photo fee, here's the autograph fee, here's the selfie, here's like the record a video fee of like I could tell you no matter how popular I ever get, which I know will not happen, which is me reverse manifesting it, but I could be like like million plus YouTube subscriber famous. I would never have the like cojones to charge people for anything with me. I'd be like, oh, thanks for coming, man. They'd be like, oh, how much is it? I'd be like, I don't know. Do I have to pay you for coming here? I'd be like, because like I just like it's just always that thing of like I would never be able to kind of unhumble my brain that way. It's always like such a weird thing.
No, I get you. I sign Pokemon cards quite a bit at events. Because people are very nice and humor me. But every so often somebody be like, "Can you sign this card?" And I look at it and I'm like, "Mate, that's like a 50 quid card. Have you got a cheaper card I can sign? Like, do you want me to try and find a cheaper card in my binder that like I can sign for you instead?" Because
I've got a great Bidoof card. You want this Bidoof card signed?
And they're like, "No, there's a staff pre-release promo. I'd love it." And I'm just like, "Mate, come on." I don't mind signing PSA cards because if you sign on the case, you can just like alcohol rub that right off, and it's like it never got signed. So that's fine. That's removable. I'm cool with that. But on the card, you can't do that.
Now I've got to imagine what is the card you regret signing the most? There has to be like some card where you're like, oh, why did you make me sign the Umbreon card? Why this one?
I don't regret signing any of them because I always kind of make sure if people ask me, I'm like, just so you know, there is some value associated with this card. But it tends to be kind of staff pre-release promo. So there was a Don fan back in Vivid Voltage. That's one of my favorite Pokemon. It's one of the 2 in my channel logo. And there's a couple other staff pre-release promos. Like there's an artist, Okacheke, I really like, and Haiganosuke. They've done some pre-release promos. And the staff versions of those, even the uninspiring staff promos, end up at like 50 quid cards. And that's generally what people ask for. And I'm a bit like, nah. Luckily, no one's ever asked me to sign a card that's worth like hundreds, because that might be the point where I'm like, I cannot in good conscience do this. But I need to double back on what you said a minute ago, because I have 2 points I need to raise. Firstly,
yeah, please.
I played that Dragon Ball game as a child. The one with the sword. Now, I didn't really know what was going on because I was an actual child.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that. Listen, you may have thought you were playing it, but you were like back, like reverse understanding the rules.
I'm moving. I've got a studio in my house, but we built a little studio in a barn outside. And I'm moving out into that at the moment. I'm sorting out my studio. I found a few piles of like old school Dragon Ball Z cards. And I need to kind of figure out what that is because it's awesome. I also imported, there was a Game Boy Advance version of that game that never got a European release, but did get an American release. So I did import that one over at some point. So I think I'm going to use that to figure out how to play the game. And
you know what? I have played that. That is not actually that bad. That's like a good way to kind of learn. Similar with the very underrated, and I wouldn't say underrated, probably more under-discussed, the like Pokemon TCG Game Boy Color game. Very, very good.
I love that game.
That's a very good nostalgic game.
Oh, I love that game so much. I actually picked up a friend of mine in Japan recently, picked me up a cartridge of the sequel that, again, only got a Japanese release.
Even better. The sequel is even better. If you've never played it, it is such great music, great pixel art. If it wasn't for the fact that it was such a late release, it's probably the only reason we never got it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It seems really good. And my Japanese is I can translate Pokemon cards pretty confidently now. So I think my Japanese is almost at a point where I can actually play that through. And because it's mostly just Pokemon cards, I think that will end up being like the first Japanese video game I play in Japanese. And I'm very much looking forward to that. So that one is, yeah, that was cool. And so you said about your wife like not being into Pokemon, but picking up the cards. Mm-hmm. Digimon did a weird thing for me because it was the first time I picked up a card game where I wasn't a fan of the license. So when I played like Pokemon, big Pokemon dude. Marvel Champions, big Marvel dude. Transformers, I wasn't a huge Transformers guy, but I was very familiar with the property as a whole. Digimon was
if you don't mind me asking with the Transformers one, are you like? I would imagine you're like what, like mid or like early 30s, or like what are you age wise?
I'm 40 in September. So
that makes more sense because I was gonna be like you probably like did you not have any like Transformers nostalgia from like growing up then?
So I had, and I don't know where this is, and it drives me crazy. But as a child, my parents bought me a book, and I don't know what it's called. I've tried to find it since. I cannot find it, but it was a book which was just every page gives you the story of one of the Transformers. And it's just a book where you flick through and it's got all the Transformers in, and it's got all their backstories, nice big picture of them. So as a kid, I would just kind of sit there learning all the Transformers. It was amazing. No, I was a big Transformers dude. But yes.
No, that totally makes sense then.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately old enough to have Transformers nostalgia. So, yeah, but
it's okay.
But Digimon, I had no, like, I knew it was there. As a Pokemon dude, you're always aware that Digimon's kind of hanging around. But I had no idea what Digimon was. I didn't understand anything about it. And one of the cool things Digimon did for me was it made me go and investigate Digimon as a whole. Like, in the middle of being, like, really obsessed with the game, Digimon Survive came out, which I had to buy because it had promo cards in.
Oh, for you it did. Let me tell you, as an American, Bandai was not on my happy list for how we had to get those promos. Lord forbid they just throw in like a promo pack or anything in there. No, you only could go to Anime Expo or bribe your friend in Germany to mail you a pack. That was the only way I could get it.
Yeah, we had you had to. Oh no, that's right. So you got points in the game, and you could use those points to get the cards. You'd go onto the online store, redeem your points, and when you had enough points, you would get the cards. But I forget the story exactly, but they put them up at like the wrong price, or they put them up at the right price, but it was too high. So I didn't actually have enough points from Digimon Survive to get the promos. So I had to like rummage through all my Switch games, and I think I had a couple PS4 ones as well. Just like some of these must have non-expired Bandai Namco codes. And I found a few in there that had, games I'd never put these codes in, and managed to amass just enough to get a pack of the promos. But I played like Digimon Survive start to finish, which is a really heavy visual novel game. Like, I'm a big tactical RPG fan.
I mean, it's definitely 80% visual novel, 20% RPG.
That's my point. And yeah, I sat through it and I loved it. And it was kind of like, if it wasn't for the Digimon card game, I'd never play Digimon Survive. And like nowadays, I started playing One Piece, read the entire manga in 3 months. Do not recommend. That is too fast. And I was heading to Japan, and I was just kind of like, I really want to read it before I go. Arbitrary thing, but
I mean, hey, you don't want to be a fake fan. They're gonna be like, oh, well, who's your favorite Fishman pirate? Yeah. They're gonna be like, oh no.
What if they ask me at the border, and that's the reason I don't get in?
Yeah, it's true. Most people don't know, but if you're going around One Piece Day, the only way into Japan is you have to list in alphabetical order everyone with a D in their name.
I think I'll probably do that, but I'm not doing it on air just in case I mess it up. So it's just, like with Gundam, I know nothing about Gundam, but I'm probably going to end up digging in now because of the incoming Gundam.
Well, I'll tell you what. Good news, you're not going to binge all of Gundam in 3 months. It's at least like Gundam is so separate that at least it'll be like, all right, start with the OG show. If you like that, it just gets better from there, and then kind of pick and choose what looks interesting to you. Because thankfully, them not being as connected as like one linear storyline, it's at least a lot more digestible. Because like with Gundam recently, I've had so many people ask me like, oh well, what should I start with? I'm like, all right, well just start with the original because you can watch most of them online pretty easily, and the movies are a good kind of starting off point. But like, it's at least not like, all right, well I've got 40 plus years of Gundam to binge now.
Yeah, oh God. See, that's the thing. I kind of like with the One Piece, they're just kind of like, here's a massive book, read it. Because it's the best thing I've ever read. Like, I've read a lot of books, a lot of comics. I think One Piece is the best thing I've ever read. I'm rereading it right now because I read a bunch of other manga and none of it was as good as One Piece. So I just started rereading One Piece, and I'm genuinely loving it because I read it so fast the first time round. There's so much where I'm like, I don't remember that. No memory of this.
Oh, it's a lot to take in, even reading it weekly.
So it's just kind of like it's what kind of card games are doing for me. Like, there's some card games where I'm a big fan of the property, so I'm sucked in right away. But nowadays, I'm kind of playing every card game that comes out, and then if it's not got a, like Star Wars Unlimited, for instance, I'm binging a bunch of new Star Wars stuff, but I've been a big Star Wars nerd since I can remember. I don't need to brush up on Star Wars. There's just a bunch of peripheral stuff. Like, I hadn't played Knights of the Old Republic, but halfway through that, started that a week or so ago. But something like Digimon and Gundam and One Piece, I'm coming in and I'm like, I'm obviously aware of this because I'm a massive nerd, but I don't have any knowledge of this specifically. Let's go dive on in. But it's stuff I never would have done had it not been for the associated card game.
So kind of going back to, because we have so many different starting points with this. This is the fun, tricky part. For you, so you had first started PTCG Radio,
Pokemon
right?
trading card
So what
game.
year would? Oh, sorry, what?
Pokemon trading card game, PTCG Radio.
Yeah, but see, when it's all smushed together, my brain wants to be like throw in a couple extra letters for Pokemon for no apparent reason at all. But like, for you, was it the podcast first, or was it the YouTube channel first?
It was a podcast first, which is why the YouTube channel has a terrible name, because Pokemon Trading Card Game Radio for a YouTube channel makes no sense. It's a dumb name. But
well, I mean, Ross, I wasn't going to tell you, but Pokken may not be as popular as it used to be. You may want to update that description. I don't know when your last Pokken video was, but it is like the second listed thing on your YouTube.
It is as well, and it's been a while since that was relevant.
Listen, but when Pokken 2 gets announced, you will be there. They will know that you are the Pokken guy.
Pokken Tournament was so good. But yeah, so it was 2012, and like the way it started, most of what I've done content creation wise has just been a case of, you know what, if no one else is doing it, I'll do it. So like 2012, I get into podcasts, and I'm big into NFL, so I find some NFL podcasts, movie podcasts, etc., etc. And then I'm like, oh, well, I love Pokemon. Let's find a Pokemon TCG podcast. There just wasn't any. And I mean, I looked everywhere. And I found half a dozen where they'd done a couple of episodes and then dropped off. But there was no actual regular weekly podcast, which drove me crazy because I'm like, I really want to listen to one. So I was like, well, hang on a second. If no one else is doing it, and I had a housemate at the time who worked at university, and part of her job was making training videos. So she lent me a really terrible quality headset, and showed me what Audacity was. And then I just I went back. When I hit like episode 300, I went back and listened to episode 1, and it's absolutely terrible. Like, there's no charm, no charisma. I sound nervous, and it's horrendous. But it's one of those things where, like, if you don't start doing it, then you don't carry on doing it. And yeah, it just kind of started from there. And I think podcast was never big. I was getting like 1,000 people a week, maybe, but that's still kind of decent numbers, and it gave me a jumping off
I mean,
point.
Especially 2012 era,
right? And it was just kind of, and I think it was because there wasn't anything else, so I was literally the only person doing it. So if you want to listen to a podcast for Pokemon, it kind of has to be this. And part of the reason I stopped doing the podcast, there were basically 2 reasons. One was, to be blunt, it's hard to monetize podcasts. And I had enough other things I was doing that were monetized. It was essentially every time I do the podcast, I'm taking time off from doing work that pays me to do very similar work that doesn't. And I'm not sure it makes that much of a difference. Like, is there anyone that's really mad I'm not doing the podcast when I'm doing 2 YouTube videos a day? Like, you're still getting all the news. But the other thing was, there's so many really good Pokemon podcasts around right now that
you have like the opposite problem of 2012.
It's kind of like, and like I am old in the content creation sphere, the Pokemon sphere. Like I'm an old man in that regard. So it's just kind of like, I set this all up. I kind of showed everyone that you could do it. And then it's like, I'm not really needed anymore. There are so many people doing really good weekly Pokemon podcasts that I can kind of dip and no one's really going to notice because there's too many other people doing really good podcasts. And I tell you what, I generally get asked about Digimon videos more often than I get asked, like, why are you not doing a Pokemon podcast anymore?
You better share this show then. You're going to make 7 people very happy that we got you to talk about Digimon.
And then the YouTube channel was a weird one because I started doing it because that's what you do, right? You have a podcast and you make a YouTube channel. But for a long time, I had no idea what I was really doing. And then it was about, I say summer 2016. That was when I really actually started doing YouTube and taking it seriously and kind of, because the stupid thing is, I was a business teacher while all this was going on. So I was teaching law and business before I started doing what I do now. So like, I'm just there every day telling my students, talking my students through how to run businesses, seeing opportunities and all of that. And I'd never, I spent that of like 3 or 4 years not doing any of this. And then one day I just kind of sat down and I was like, right, what is actually going to work? What is no one else doing? And I just started doing videos like news videos and covering new cards, which at the time I was doing it, just nobody was doing. So the videos started doing quite well because there just wasn't any of that around at the time. And it just kind of grew from there. And then lockdown hit, and I was supply teaching at the time because the YouTube was doing all right, not great. So I kind of half quit teaching and did supply teaching, substitute teaching with the YouTube. But the lockdown hit, there was no supply teaching. And I sat down and properly made an actual plan. How does this work as a viable business? And I actually made a huge difference. And from then on, touch wood, that was 4.5 odd years ago, and I've not been back to teaching since. It's like October 2020 was the last time I was in a classroom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because one of the things that actually kind of drew me a lot with your videos, and it's even still the case now, is your lack of production into the videos is the best part, because most of the time, and I'm sure a lot of the people who subscribe to you or enjoy this as well for it, is you can watch the video and there are still just enough things on there of showing the products or showing the cards or showing the thing of news you're talking about, but also it's just short form enough or just long enough that it can kind of almost be like its own little mini podcast of like, you can just listen to it in the background, and as long as you kind of know outside of like looking at the specific product or the card art itself, it's very digestible, which is nice, because like there are, especially YouTube is in no short supply of people making Pokemon YouTube videos.
Nope.
And one of the things that like I don't even know what the kind of ratio is to it now, but it's like, ironically, I don't know if this is just because I'm someone who's like, I enjoy watching people open videos. I enjoy people like doing their unboxings and seeing what they get with it. But you kind of do get to that point when it's like, I'm ex-YouTuber and I'm going to open 1,000 packs of Prismatic Evolutions, and I'm like, I would rather like watch a bunch of people really be happy to get 2 ETBs than like watch you open 1,000, honestly.
Yeah, I mean it works for some people, and for those people it's great. That's not a very sustainable business model.
No,
because
it skews, and I think it skews a lot of people's perceptions of like, oh well,
yep.
when is enough for most average people with it? It's like a thing of just being like, yeah, like if you're opening it for you, open as many packs as you really want with it. But if you're so used to seeing like every X, Y, or Z person online being like, all right, well, if we're not opening like 100 packs, what are we doing here?
Yeah, like when a new set comes out, I'll open a box, but it'll be kind of, I'm opening a box. I actually care about the game, the artwork, the mechanics, and everything else.
Oh yeah, looking
at
the cards, reading the cards. That's another one as well. I nope out as soon as I see someone, like when they crack open a pack, either if they just flip right to wherever the hit's going to be, or if it's just nope, there we go. There we go. It's like, no, like I like, and that's one of the things as well, like I feel like such a weirdo when I go to like locals for pre-releases of, even though I follow and I know what cards are in the set, it's that thing of when you're actually opening a new set for the first time. I love holding it, looking at the card, reading it over, like seeing who the artist is and stuff, and like really appreciating each one. Because yeah, you're not gonna enjoy looking at every common card the 100th time you pull it, but like the first, like, I like to at least enjoy every pack like it's going to be my last one, instead of trying to treat it as a disposable product that's only there to make you money.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. The lack of production is very deliberate for a couple of reasons. Partly, it is supposed to be like, it's not like nowadays. People don't generally sit and watch. My average YouTube video is about 12 minutes because years ago, I sat down and did a bunch of looking at the data, and 12 minutes is the sweet spot. I don't know why 12 minutes is the sweet spot, but it is. Everybody thinks I'm hitting for 10 minutes to do mid-roll ads, which is ridiculous because it's 8 minutes now YouTube to do mid-roll ads. But 12 minutes is the sweet spot. People aren't generally sitting down and staring at the screen for 12 minutes. They're putting a video on while they're making food, while they're at the gym, while they're doing something else, while they're playing a game on their phone. People second screen a lot. So if I've got a video you can largely listen to, and like you say, oh, quick peek at the screen, that's what the card is, that's what the product is, it's there and there's enough going on that if you want to sit and watch a video, you can. But and it's not always possible. But most of the time, my videos can almost be used, like you say, as mini podcasts. And that's very deliberate because of how people consume content nowadays. But it's the nature of what I do. Like if a new Pokemon set is revealed, that's going to be a big video if I'm quick. So if the video, generally speaking, those things are revealed at 2 p.m. UK time, I want my video live by 3 p.m. Also, 3 p.m. is when I have to leave to get my kids from school. So that becomes really important. So, but, if I'm doing these big, well-produced videos with lots of kind of editing and all of that, it's not going to be possible to knock that up in an hour. And for my videos, this isn't, hey, look at my super slick production. It's this news has come out and I've got a huge background and knowledge and context I can add to this that most people can't. Let me explain the news to you with all the bits you probably didn't see because you're not as obsessed with this game as I am. And that's what's kind of important to get out there. And generally I can go from the news has been revealed to the video is online ready to watch in 50 to 60 minutes is generally the average. And that's kind of important. And it also helps because I travel for events and stuff. I make videos in hotel rooms. The two weirdest, I made a video in the hallway of a cinema. It was a Pokemon Day event.
I was hoping you were in a really boring movie. You're like, oh my gosh, Paddington 2, get out of here. I've got to record this video.
I liked Paddington 2. I have not seen Paddington in Peru, but I like Paddington 2. But so I went to this Pokemon Day event in London hosted by Pokemon, and I was like, they're not going to announce TCG news. They never announce TCG news. This will be a nice, relaxed day. But I still take my laptop and mic because I'm, just in case.
You're a consummate professional.
And they revealed the Pokemon TCG. Yeah, of course. But they revealed the Pokemon TCG Classic, which was a huge piece of news. The problem is we've got the room the event's in and the cinema screen where they're showing it, and they're playing it on a loop after it's finished. So I end up ducking into this corridor in between the two rooms to record the audio. And there were two people that kind of opened the door into me. And the first guy was just kind of like, mate, you really shouldn't be here. And I was like, just give me like 5 minutes, I'm almost done. And the second guy was much less nice. He was like, mate, you're a fire hazard. You need to leave right now. And I convinced him to give me like 1 minute to finish it off. And then I sat in the actual cinema screen editing, not on the screen. That would have been amazing. Did not have the tech. But just kind of reclining in a cinema seat doing the editing. And and on a train, I made a video start to finish on a train once, which was weird. They revealed a Charizard box, and Charizard's a big deal. So this Charizard box is going to be popular. They reveal it 10 minutes after I get on a 5-hour train.
Do you remember which one this was?
It was a super premium
Oh,
collection.
yeah. Oh, no. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, especially back then, ironically.
So and the weird thing was, I spoke to the conductor, and it turned out there was an empty first-class carriage that had been reserved for a big group of people who were getting on the train in about an hour. So I convinced the conductor to let me go in the empty carriage, record the audio, and then kind of go back to my seat to edit and upload just in my seat on the train. And that's when I realized how many announcements there are on a train journey.
Many.
Because every time the announcement comes on, I have to stop recording. It's every like 30 seconds. It's absurd. But I did it.
As someone, I love hearing the stuff like that because I very much the same. Like the joy of mostly being audio only is that thing of like, listen, as long as it's quiet enough and I've got a good enough microphone, that's really the only kind of thing I'm hoping to get from here. For you at least, just because you've had a really good consistency with the video, and I will say it is funny of like. You will sometimes, I feel like your videos, it's like one of two things, and a lot of this mostly just, I'm sure, comes to like time zone or work and like family and stuff. You will have a video that goes up so quickly that I'll be like, wow, you really knocked that out really quickly as soon as I got announced. That's really nice. And then other times it'll be like, wow, it's been like X amount of hours. I'm surprised he hasn't made a video about this.
It really depends. Like, I've got different categories of news. So, I mean, to take Pokemon as an example, like if a new set's released, I generally, I've got a network of friends I work with, and essentially we don't know when the big news is coming down, but we can look at kind of, what does the schedule look like? Well, these are the 3 days when it makes sense this news will be announced. So those days get kind of blocked out and we know it's coming. And that's the big news. Other times, things might drop kind of during tea or when I'm putting the kids to bed, and it's like, I'm not stopping putting the kids to bed for this. It will have to wait a couple of hours. Other times, essentially, the news comes out and it's not quite big enough. So at that point, it just becomes when's there a space in my schedule? I want to cover this. I'm going to talk about it. But now it's when's it in the schedule? It's not, I'm going to make a space for it. It's just not that big a news.
I mean, listen, not every pair of sleeves and deck boxes can make the news as much as all the other ones for it. But I always appreciate that, because my thing is always, there's never a week where there's nothing to talk about. No matter what it is you cover, there's always either something or like some discussion or something that can always come with it. The tricky part, I'm sure you get to, is Pokemon enough would be enough for you to not even need the other channel. But I'm sure just due to like having, like we mentioned, like other interests and other card games and stuff like that, it's more kind of fun to be able to like talk about other stuff, whether it be like new games coming out or like One Piece or Gundam and things like that. Of at least recently for you, have you had times where it's been like, not that one is more fun than the other, but it's like, for you, which one do you kind of get more excited about new stuff getting announced? Because like, well, I'm into a lot of different like card games, and I still follow everything. By the way, I'm sure you are the same. I follow so many card games I don't play that I'm like, I have wasted so many brain cells on card game knowledge. It's just like, it's like, oh, well, this is because of this, and this is coming out, and somebody like, oh, wow, are you really into, like, blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no, I've never played it. I'm just like, once you start, like, putting this into your news rotation cycle, it's just like, I can't unlearn it. But, like, for me, it's, like, easily, like, One Piece has kind of become, like, my go-to thing, just because of, like, I really like it, it's fun, it's very popular, but I still enjoy following and covering everything else, even though it's not, like, the thing I'm constantly absorbing.
For me, it really depends. It's the news more than the game. Like, don't get me wrong. Pokemon is the number one, right? Pokemon was the first love. Pokemon is the one I do the most casting for. It's what, the Wossy plays. It was never like I'm going to start a second channel. And it actually does. It doesn't make a huge amount of money, but it does make some money now. And it is like financially viable as an actual kind of work thing. But I was never really the goal. Essentially, I used to stream Mario Kart on it before I had kids. I used to stream Mario Kart on a Tuesday. And I'd get like 50 people coming and watching. And I'd do races of people watching. And it was just a really fun time. I did that for a few months, a year. I can't remember anymore. But I streamed Mario Kart for a while. So I did like a little cut up of Mario Kart highlights, put it up on my Pokemon channel. And I lost like 20 subscribers in like 2 minutes.
Come on, guys, it's Nintendo.
And like this, I only had like a couple thousand subscribers at that point. Like I did not have 20 subscribers to spare. And that was kind of like an eye-opening of, I've done a really good job with this channel in one respect. I've done a really good job of making this a hardcore Pokemon channel. This is full Pokemon all the time. People come here for Pokemon. But I'd done such a good job of that people were like, we could not care less about anything non-Pokemon related. And I'd kind of trapped myself in a corner, which is why I've gone for such a generic name for the second channel of Wossy Plays. That was I'm never making a third channel. It's not happening. This is my anything else that interests me. And, nowadays it's One Piece with, Lorcana and Star Wars Unlimited and Gundam and a few other games creeping in. But for a long time, it was basically Keyforge and Transformers. And I was just kind of rotating through those two games. And it's now completely different to what it was back then. But in terms of what I look forward to most, it really depends. See, at the moment, both games are a little bit quiet. There's not a huge amount going on in either of them. But One Piece is in the OP11 reveal cycle in Japan. So they've just shown us all the alternate art leaders, the secret rares. I'm like, that's really exciting to me. But it's because Pokemon aren't really showing anything right now. Whereas in the not too distant future, they're going to show off the next Japanese set, which is going to be, I think, is that the Team Rocket one? Whichever one it is.
For Japan, Japan will be Team
that.
Rocket because Journey Together is
Rocket
ours
Returns.
for the West. Because it'll go Journey, Team Rocket, and then the 151 Black and White.
Yes, exactly. Which Gen 5 is my favorite gen. I'm so hyped for that. So it's kind of like when we get that happening, and it's weird. Like, like I say, I'm far too close to 40, and like I'm a grown up. I got 3
you can't
kids
go backwards,
and
unfortunately.
And a wife. But it's just kind of like Japanese sets nowadays. They get revealed during Champions League streams in Japan. So we can say with a high degree of certainty there is a Champions League stream on this day. It is 6 weeks before the release of this set, which we know because we've seen listings which have given away the release date. I am so like over the top excited to watch this stream and get the reveals. And like I'm warning my wife like weeks in advance. At like 11 p.m. on this Saturday, I'm going to be out of, for a couple of hours. I'm going to be locked in. Like you can't work early on this Saturday because I'm so excited about this. And like I get that real kind of giddy excitement of big news is dropping. This is awesome. But it's kind of like with kids. You don't have a favorite kid, but there are certainly days where one of them's being really nice and sweet, and the other one just keeps punching you in the arm for no reason.
Which child is your prismatic evolutions, Ross? Are you comfortable enough to say that on the show?
No, I'm afraid I will not be saying that on the show. But there are certainly days where like one of my kids is being really sweet, and like the other day I came home. I'd been away at MegaCon for a couple of days, and I come home and my wife's like, "So your 2-year-old broke something while you were away," and in my head I'm like, "This is cool. Whatever he's broken, it's not going to be that. It's going to be, my favorite mug or something like that. It's not going to be a big deal. Anything I really care about is in my studio, which I know they're not going into. This is going to be fine." And she was like, "It's the telly." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I care about that." Turns out he was swinging a Hoover around. And he didn't even do that much damage, but he caught it just right.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
And this is the first real good telly I'd ever owned. Nice big 4K curved screen, beautiful telly. Got it like on sale at a ridiculous price, but that's not the point. Best telly I've ever owned. So like that day, he was not my favorite kid because he broke my telly.
Well, did you tell him this is now coming out of his allowance for the next 18 years?
He just come over like, "Hi, Daddy, I missed you," and I'm like, "I'm mad at you, boy. You broke my telly." But it's kind of like that with card games, but it does come down to it because, like, for instance, in December, we had Lorcana European Championships on the same day as One Piece European Championships.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, especially because once you start even covering more than, like, 2, it's funny how much all the cycles kind of line up, whether it be for competitive or new releases.
Yeah, and it's just, and so that's kind of when it really comes down to it because, like, I did One Piece Euros in January, but I had to skip it in December to do Lorcana Euros, and like that's a really hard choice because I love both these games. But that's kind of where it really comes down to it. In terms of YouTube, honestly, most days I do Pokemon and One Piece and sometimes a bit of something else, and it's just really fun to flick between them. But there are certainly days where, like, my Pokemon videos are good, but there's really big One Piece news which has come out. Like on Friday, they randomly revealed the those special Dawn sets. The Free Brothers
that
ones.
was really strange. Every time I think I know what Bandai's doing with like their double pack replacements, I'm like, okay, the 10s make sense. And no, now we're gonna do the 10s and the Dawn sets, and I'm like, I'm not against it because I have one sickness for like One Piece, and it is I want to have every cool Dawn. There's a lot of Dawns I'm cool not having. If they're like a manga panel, I have to own it. But like the ones like where they get you is like the ones they've had in the last couple of double packs where it's like a character portrait. I'm normally like, oh, at reveal it doesn't look that cool, but then they throw in just enough texture work on it where I'm like, oh dang, now I need it.
What about the Worlds one, the Luffy Worlds Dawn? Because I've only 10 of them made.
Ironically, that one I'm fine. The one I've had the most FOMO with, and it's only because I haven't had a chance to really play competitively over the last year. am only been kicking myself I didn't get the Moon one, the Gear 5 Dawn.
Oh,
That one is very pretty. I've seen it in person. I really want it. I have this thing with cards where I'm like, as long as I know I can still get it myself, I won't buy it online.
yeah, I get that. I missed out on the Gear 5 Dawn. I was really upset. The first place they gave that away was they had a pop-up One Piece TCG store in Shibuya in Tokyo. And I was actually there when they opened it. And it was really cool. It was OPO 5 at the time. And they had every single card from the set posted as a poster somewhere in Shibuya. And like everywhere you're walking around the city, you were just seeing literally the entire set, all the old arts, everything. And if you walked around the city enough, you would see the entire set just randomly posted on walls. It was brilliant. But I was not as on it as I usually am. And I went to the dude. I got there at like 10 in the morning. And I got like a ticket to go to the pop-up store. And you took like 2 pictures of these posters, tweeted them out with a hashtag, and then they'd give you the Luffy Don. But even though I got there at 10 a.m., my slot was at like 3:30 in the afternoon. And I had tickets to a baseball game in Yokohama that evening. So I had to not go to the One Piece store and not get the Gear 5 Dom. And I'd forgotten all about that until you just dragged it up then.
Well, if I ever end up getting another one, I'll mail you one. I'm at least somewhat hopeful. I don't think I have a chance of it getting there, but maybe someone at this event may have some, and I can puppy dog eyes them going. I'm going to try, and hopefully tickets are not a disaster. I'm going to try and drive down and go do the Texas event next month.
Oh, the One Piece Day in Dallas.
And there's a very specific reason I'm going there. It's not for the exclusive products. Lord knows it's not for me to go 0-2. I can do that anywhere. I don't need to drive to Texas to go 0-2. It's because of the Uta Autodon.
Oh, okay.
Those ones, the fact that we're getting those in English at all, I'm like, I've got to get those, because that was what they did for the year 2 anniversary in Japan, and I remember when those were out, I was like, I had a chance to get some, but I was like, I'd prefer to have English if I can, but I'm like, I'm going to wait, and I'll see. And I'm only a couple states away, so it is like a doable day road trip away, and it is a free event, so I'm like, that would be a good kind of weekend road trip, as long as, because tickets go up next week, so by the time this show comes out, well, I'll at least have said on Twitter if I have gotten any, or if I have failed miserably.
Oh, that would be cool. See, weirdly enough, so Pokemon World was in Hawaii last year, and flying from the UK to Hawaii sucks. There's no
yeah.
flights.
What's that, like probably like an 18-hour flight for you?
The general route is like 11 or 12 to LA, and then another like some kind of layover, and then like another like 6 or 7 or something from LA to Hawaii. So I just figured, like, if I'm going to take a stupid flight, I'm going to take a stupid flight via Tokyo and get like 3 days in Japan, because then I get to go to Japan for 3 days. And I actually landed on the Sunday of One Piece Day, and if my flight was on time, I actually would have had enough time to get to One Piece Day and pick up that Don and the other TCG stuff. But in the end, I didn't apply for tickets because I didn't want to be in a situation where I got tickets and then I'm spending the whole trip to Japan like stressing, am I going to get to this event in time?
And then it just kind of ruins the whole mood.
Yeah. So, like, I was very, very tempted, but in the end, I decided, and I probably wouldn't have got tickets anyway, but I was there on the website hovering over it like, no, I can't apply, I can't do it. But it was just weird being like, with every Don you're talking about, I was in Japan when that came out, and I've only been to Japan twice.
So we're going to do the world's cleanest segue into kind of talking about video games, because you also used to talk about video games, not as much, but are you looking forward to covering more? Because obviously, as we're getting closer to the Switch 2, we're going to have Pokemon Day probably within the next month is the next Pokemon Presents stream. Are you looking forward to ZA, or like where are you at with the next Legends game?
Oh, I'm very, very excited. Like, Legends Arceus was a phenomenal game. I absolutely loved it. Completely subverted my expectations. It was everything I wanted that I didn't really know I wanted. Because the main series Pokemon games, the way I see it, like, I have to play them as fast as possible. It's for work. So with the big ones, like the main series games, I've set up an Australian eShop account.
Just so
So go
you could be
online.
that sicko playing it at 12 o'clock Australian time.
Oh yeah, 2 p.m. UK time on Thursday is way better than Friday
That is
morning.
too funny. I don't blame you. I'm still. I've got to be dragged kicking and streaming, kicking and screaming to get anything unless I get like a review code. But like I feel at least pretty confidently at this point, you could probably guilt someone at Nintendo into getting you a review code for the next game.
Weirdly enough, like I don't have a relationship with
It's all
Nintendo,
Pokemon
which
Company.
seems kind of. Oh no, so Pokemon Company, very good relationships. Know a lot of people over there. Do quite a bit with them. It's fantastic. It's something I might raise. The biggest issue is, and I'm sure you've seen this as well with review codes. If you get a review code, that comes with conditions attached.
Hmm.
Whereas if you buy it on the Australian eShop,
That's true.
you get
You
it
know what?
earlier than the
Honestly,
review.
yeah. Is it like honestly? You're probably going to get more views by not taking the review code and just playing it about 18 hours early.
So I've got friends who like deliberately don't want review codes because I've ended up in a situation
Very good
before
point.
where essentially I got sent some assets early by a card game company to help me make a video early, and then they told me that actually we've given you these assets early. Now you've got to wait to post the video. And ended up posting it a day later than I would have posted it if I hadn't been given the assets. And having the assets early and making the video early was great, but it wasn't worth having to wait a day after the news dropped to actually post it. So kind of backfired a little bit. So I'm always a little wary with stuff like that
The
now.
only time I've really had a strict embargo that kind of affected the show, review code wise, is normally pretty easy because a lot of times for Atlas games, their embargoes will come up much earlier than week of release. They usually, like, for the longest time, they would always do, you'd get them about a month and a half to 2 months early, which for games that are as long as that is
Nice.
very nice.
Yeah.
But then
You need that run
but
up.
then you get in that problem of I had this. I remember no game did this suck more with than when I had a copy of Animal Crossing almost 3 months early on 3DS. I think it was New Leaf, and you're playing it, and you then realize I cannot play this or talk about this with anybody for the next like 3 months. So it's like I'm playing the most lonely version of Animal Crossing possible.
Oh
And it's
no.
like, well, this game is great, but I can't talk to anyone about this for multiple weeks. And then what was funny was the one time where this came up, bringing it back to Bandai, was we kind of announced slash helped in the background with the premium Bandai product they did. I think 2 years ago now. At this point, it would have been 2022. Yeah, it would have been. It would have gone up December of 2022, so almost 3 years ago now. They did that very weird re-release of Bandai got the rights to the old Shin Megami Tensei card game from Japan, and when they brought it
I
over to the
remember that.
West, they didn't translate it, but they put it up for sale on Premium Bandai. They were like, "Hey, this is a weird set. You're going to get every card. There's no booster packs. It's just we're going to give you every version of this card. We made new ones for the new games. They look just like the old ones from the late 90s, early 2000s. You get a binder and you get a poster, and it was like $100 or whatever. And it was one of those things of we knew some of the people on that team who were working on it over the last couple of years, and I was like, oh, let's bring you guys on the show. Let's talk about the process. Because like, it was one of those rare things of like, oh, you finally kind of had that good excuse of having someone on, and this was such a niche thing again of like it's a premium Bandai only thing, and even with that, it very much was like I know people who love card games and who love Atlas or Persona and SMT, and it's like so many people missed out on this set, and I think will be one of those fun, weird collector's items of like they were gauging the market and being like, okay, would this be worth kind of pursuing, of like maybe doing a further expansion or a release. I hope that that happens. I don't think it will, at least in the form that that one specifically took. But like that was like my equivalent of like when the Pokemon Classic Collection came out for like that big box set.
Yeah.
Like this little thing was that, and like I always like tell people if you haven't checked checked it out or at least listened to the show, it's worth kind of going into because the amount of hoops they had to jump through just to get the rights was interesting enough, let alone getting into, like, hearing them talk about their printing. Because, like, the way Bandai does all their printing in Japan, they're very, very protective of, like, they have patented ways of all their printing methods, all the stuff they do for that. Like, it's so much more intricate than I kind of would expect, because I'm aware of a lot of printing just through, like, my day job stuff, but, like, to kind of really hear about kind of from conception to release of a product was really cool to kind of follow. And for something like that to be like, oh, hey, we got to push this show back like a week or a couple other things. Ironically, it wasn't for like approvals. We had to keep getting it pushed back because they kept having last minute adjustments for the store page from Atlas Japan. Atlas Japan kept being like, oh, hold on. No, you got to change this copyright now. You got to move this. Like, nothing of the product ever changed. It was just the listing took forever to get put up.
That's amazing. I remember that product, but we don't have premium Bandai in Europe, and I was a bit more shy a few years ago of importing stuff. But that is certainly something where it's kind of, I look back and I'm like, I'm a bit of a Persona guy, and I'm a huge TCG guy, and I'm like, that's probably someone I should have picked up when I had the chance. But I didn't really have the chance. It would have been like jumping through massive
no
hoops
LGS store where you live was going to import one. Like, no one was going to have those.
No, that would have been making puppy eyes at someone I know in the US and getting them to order it and then forward it on to me, which I probably could have done, to be fair.
See, if you had slid into my DMs, then we could have had this conversation like two years earlier. I will say, though, the funny thing is, my favorite thing I've ever given away still was when they came out with them finally. Bandai sent me. They didn't send me the release. What I got was the release, but what they sent me was when the first run of print samples were approved. They sent those. Oh, nice. They didn't send they sent what everyone got at the end of the day, but we got the first wave. Once the approvals were done, they got them in. They said, okay, this is how it looks. Do we get all the approvals? Great. And they shipped us 2 copies, and one I still have for myself. And I was like, what do I do with this? Because, like, this is such a weird thing of, like, I would feel weird keeping 2. I don't need to. I don't want to sell it. I don't want to just kind of give it to one person. I mean, it'd be like a cool prize for one person to get, but it was like, what should I really do for it? And I held it for a couple of months, ironically, until it was about to ship for everyone who ordered it. And we brought it to Anime Expo the first year we ever went. And it was everyone who came got something out of that box. Because it came with like over 100-something cards. So it was like everybody who came, either like if you got a big prize, you got the binder. If you came, you got the poster. Or if you were like at least asked a question, you'd get a card. So it was like first come, first serve for that. And it was so funny of just everybody in that room was like the peak audience for that product. And of course, I think out of like a room of 300 people, like 2 people had ordered it. So it was cool. Kind of funny to just like get like tell these people about something and be like, oh hey, but you at least get something to take away from this.
Oh, that's a really nice way of doing it. Also, for anyone listening, it is very, very, very bad form to sell anything you're gifted by a company. People do not like that. That is how people stop working with you.
Man, let me tell you, I never plan on doing it, but there's always that little thing in my head where I always go, but how much is this going for? You know, like, what is this like, I would never sell this, but there's like the curious part of me, like, what is this going for? What are people looking for? Because I remember when I got my set in for Gundam, I was like, let me take a look at what the English sets were going for. And when I saw the price that the English ones were going for, just the box, I was like, oh god, I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah, I tried to get my hands on one. You're talking about the kind of the influencer kit they gave away in December.
Yes, that I had missed going to that. I got invited to that, and I got sick the week it happened. And I was so excited to go. Honestly, more than anything, just to play. It wasn't even like, oh dang, I wouldn't like. It would have been a cool trip to go, but I got sick, and it was like right before the holidays, and I was like, I messaged my contact who had invited me, and I was like, if there's anything left, like I was like, if there's like a deck because I had known that it came with a pre-constructed set of cards, but I was like, if I could at least get like a couple of cards or anything that was left, I wasn't looking for anything crazy. I was like, oh yeah, we'll let you know if we find anything. And then like 3 weeks later, I got this ginormous suitcase in the mail. It was like, oh yeah, everybody got one of these. So they were like, yeah, we had one for you since you weren't there. They just mailed it over to me. And
Oh, that's cool.
if you've seen what's in that, I made a video of it on the channel for anyone out there who's curious. That was probably one of the coolest unboxings I had done in recent memory. So wild, by the way, that when I brought that briefcase to my locals on like our Bandai night to like let people try it out and play it and stuff before the pre-release had happened, just because I knew how hard these kits were to get. When people were playing it, I had a couple people come up to me and were like, oh my god, I saw an unboxing video that was this, and it was like, yeah, that's my channel. And these are people I go, like, these are my like weekly friends I would like go and play cards with, and they were like, you have a YouTube channel? It's like, it's my name. How does nobody know? Like, it's like, what other Spencer Presley would be talking about these specific niches?
I did. I got in touch with my contact from Bandai. Like as soon as I found out about Gundam, I threw a couple of emails out, and I was just kind of like, right, you know what I do? Like,
what do we have to do to make this happen?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what's going on with Gundam, but whatever's going on, I want in. And essentially, they just didn't do an equivalent in Europe. That was like a US only thing. They did. It was Houston,
yes.
Wasn't it? Yes, they did the thing in Houston for you guys, and there was no English equivalent. So I've made it very clear to Bandai, just like, you know, I'm in on Gundam, but as it stands at the moment, there's been nothing, which is it's making me a little bit sad because, like you say, those boxes look cool, and like I've gotten myself to the point where if there were any being given out in Europe, I'm pretty sure I'm on the list. It just turns out that never happened.
I'm at least glad that it's coming out in Europe. I was worried that it might get Union Arena'd.
Yeah, that was a weird one. Union Arena, I've picked up a few Japanese sets. Like Tekken 7 was a cool one. It was weird. The Tekken 7 Union Arena set, like most of the set is just like generic video game art.
That's Union Arena for you.
But then you get a box and there's like 2 or 3 really nice new illustration, like fancy full art cards, which are amazing.
Cause I don't think you've gotten probably anything since you've last unboxed a video, right? So you probably haven't gotten any of the like 2024 sets that came out, right?
No, nothing.
So they did take the criticism and they have adjusted it for the English release of almost everything, and that's why they've kind of been a little bit wonkier with what is in each set and what's kind of included. So, ironically, they made the Western version a little bit better for Union Arena because it was so screenshot heavy that I do recommend people check it out because, honestly, the original illustration cards that are there are almost nice enough to kind of make up for it. And then pretty much every set now that we've come out with Demon Slayer, every other set that's coming out has way, way, way more original art in it overall, which goes a really, really long way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I like about Union Arena. I mean, I picked up a bunch of Japanese.
It's fun to
sets
play.
I
like how different it plays. It plays
new.
very unlike any other Bandai game.
Yeah, it's a cool game, but that's another one. Weirdly, that had a spike in Japan. That game they had a bad launch, and it was doing horrendously. Like, I was picking up boxes of me and Robico for
cheap.
I think I paid £8 for a few bottles. I was buying them for £8 each on Amazon Japan. It was absurd. And then all of a sudden there was a massive turnaround, and Union Arena, it was at the end of last year, middle of last year, had a huge spike in sales and suddenly became like a legitimate concern. But with no European release, and it's one of those games where I could easily see myself covering that one really strongly, but I think it's one of those games I just had to make a decision of it's not going to break in enough. And also, these games, like you see it with UVS, Weiss, Schwarz, where they cover lots of different properties, it makes my job a lot more difficult.
Oh yeah, if you're not well versed on it, it's very easy to kind of just be throwing yourself immediately into the deep end.
Yeah. Whereas, things even like Disney Lorcana, there's a bunch of films I've not watched yet, but there's enough in there that I'm pretty confident. Star Wars Unlimited, I know all the Star Wars. One Piece, I can just go and read One Piece. Gundam, okay, I don't know anything about it, but there's
It's a
one
big
thing that
robot,
I can
though.
go and kind of, yeah, exactly. Whereas, I'm not going to learn everything about One Punch Man and then go and watch all of this other. It's just too much going on there.
Well, speaking of games that at least are kind of related to Union Arena and video games, we can finally get on to our main topic, which I'm sure will be actually shorter than our intro. So, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on was initially I wanted to talk to you about the Persona 3 Reload set that had come out last year in Japan. So Weiss Schwarz, we will not get into the history of all these because, geez, then we'll really be here all day. But Weiss Schwarz, very much similar to like a Union Arena, is a crossover collaboration card game. It's been around for many, many years. And ironically, Persona 3 is not even their first Persona set they've done. They've done and I'm sure I'm going to forget some, the original Persona 3, Persona 4, the anime, Arena, Persona Q, Persona 5, and a whole bunch of other stuff over the years, along with like ranging from anime to mobile games and video games and other things like that out there. But in the West, and like I had mentioned to you before, if there's a card I can get in English and I know I can get it myself, I will almost always do that. I'm very much like, I have nothing against importing. My wife always likes to give me a hard time about this. She'll be like, well, the new set's already out in Japan. Just go get the new set. Like, no, no, no. I have to wait for it to be in English. I'll enjoy it more in English. Like, but she wants it now. She's like, I want to see the card. I want to get the new set. And ironically, with Weiss Schwarz, when Persona 3 Reload got announced and released last year, I was like, there is no way this set comes out in the West. It's a small set. There's very few cards. Weiss hasn't done anything with Atlas since Persona 5 many years ago. Like, some of those cards are really, really hard to find, and like that product is really expensive. It's just like, there's no way it's going to happen. And I was at a local store that had boxes at a pretty good price. And ironically, I think we bought 3 boxes, and in the first box alone, we hit like the top SP signed card. And I was like, fantastic. I wiped my hands. We've got one of every card in the set. I'm happy. I don't got to worry about this. And then like 6 or 7 months later, they announced, bam, nope, just kidding, Spencer's Wallet. They are coming in English. It's the exact same set, but it's in English. And I was like, oh, well, I'm excited because I'm going to buy it, and it'll be cool to kind of compare the cards, especially from English to Japanese. But you were probably one of the few people I saw, at least around the like trading card game sphere, A, know what this was, and B, also imported some. And you bought definitely way more than 3 boxes. So I kind of wanted to.
I went.
you went a little ham on that set.
Carry on. I got 10 in the end. So 60 cards in the set, and the way they do it is really, really cool. So there's a 60 card set, but then the exact same set exists as Persona Rares. And you buy, the way it works in Japan anyways, you buy a pack, the boxes have, is it 6 packs in, and then each pack I think has 4 cards, 3 regular and 1 Persona Rare. But the Persona Rares are really just foiled versions of the regular cards. So you've got the same 60 card set existing as regular and Persona Rare. But the thing which I absolutely adore that they've done, the foiling is not the same. Now, there's a bunch of cards that have similar foiling, don't get me wrong. But it's not like like so many other card games, they would just put a mirror sheen on there, it's flat foil, done. The Persona Rares are foiled and textured, and there's really different from card to card. They've really kind of gone out of their way to design a really nice way to foil and texture all of these individual cards, which is then really awkward for me because, again, I've got like the 60 card set easy, but I've got about 3/4 of the Persona Rares, but I don't have all of them. And now I need to find somewhere, because there's the Japanese single sites I use for like Pokemon and One Piece, but they don't sell Weiss Schwarz. So I'm now like, well, I need to find somewhere to get the rest of these Persona Rares. And like you, I think I hit 4 signed cards, which was a pretty decent ratio.
There's only 8, and the chance of pulling them is very, very, very low.
I doubled up. So there's the protagonist one, which is just the protagonist on a background
Oh,
sign.
I think four of them are him. That's the best part.
Oh,
Literally half of them are the protagonist in different positions.
but the best one, I don't know if it's the one that's the most valuable. I've not looked up the value in a while. But there's one that's basically got the whole crew, and the signature includes a little sketch of Koromaru.
Yes. So one of the things that I was most excited about this set is Weiss. They didn't start this, but definitely one of their biggest things is the SP signature cards are very often signed by either the voice actors or someone related to the project. And the thing that was the coolest for me about this set was none of the signatures are from the voice actors. They're all from the staff who made the game, which is genuinely way cooler than for me. So the one you're talking about it's that really nice wallpaper shot of not only the whole cast from Persona 3, but also all the villains as well, and it like shows Tartarus.
Yes.
It's very pretty. I really am jealous that I do not have that card. But the signature on yours is by Sojima, and Sojima is the guy who did all the character designs basically from Persona 3 all the way up to now like Metaphor.
Oh wow! Okay, I did not. I knew who it was. I didn't know the history of his job. But see, that was the one signature card. Because obviously I'd seen them all online. That was the one I was really desperate for. Partly because the wallpaper with all the characters, you know, the good guys and the villains and all of that. But just having a little Koromaru sketch as part of that gold signature was just. I never actually used him in the game. He's a bit rubbish when you. Maybe it's just me. I could not keep him on my team. He did not pull his weight. But that doesn't mean he's not adorable, and I wanted a signature of him in there.
No, Koromaru, ironically, so I pulled up the list of the different 8 cards. The funny thing with them is, normally going by Weiss logic, there's 2 cards with Aegis on it. Because there's 2 connecting cards. There's one with Aegis on the left side of the moon, and the one with the protagonist on the right, and those are both SP cards. And then there's a brand new drawing. There's only 2 original new drawings in the whole set for Weiss, and it's the ones with the green clock background. So there's one with Aegis, and there's one with the protagonist. And normal Weiss logic, or even just trading card game logic, would be the one with the waifu is going to be the more expensive card. And for whatever reason, the green background with the protagonist is the most expensive card by a very, very large mile. And I don't know if it's just because of the drawing or like of the character, but what's funny about it is what I got most excited about when I saw the card was like, oh, it's cool because it's a really, really nice looking card, was that I loved the person they got to sign it was Kazushi Wada, who's been the series producer for almost like the whole 25 plus years of the series. Like he's pretty much like outside of each one of the game directors and everything for it, he's like one of the more long-running staff members, pretty much right there next to Sojima.
Oh, that sounds. I don't. I'm pretty. I'm trying to find the list online of the cards because annoyingly, obviously, like the signed cards, they don't go in the binder. They go in top loaders and get put somewhere. But the problem is because I'm moving studio right now, I was looking for them kind of before I came on here, and they're just. I found so many really cool cards. Could not for the life of me find my signature Persona cards from the Japanese set. Although I gotta say, I'm out on the English set.
You're not double
picking
dipping
any of them up. No, I've got, like I said, I'm close enough to the Japanese set that I think I'm gonna have to call it there because I was buying them. I had a quick look earlier. I pulled up I was buying them on Amazon Japan. They were very readily available. And I even went as nerdy as to look up the exchange rate on the day I ordered it. And I was paying £13 or $17 per box over in Japan, plus a little bit to get them shipped over. So they were so ridiculously cheap that I was just like I'd ordered a couple and I was like, well, I'll go order a couple more. And I'm just buying like 2 or 3 at a time. And they're really cool. And then when my first lot came in, I was like, I've beefed on this one. I need to get more of these. So then I put in another order of a few, and it got to the point where, like I say, I needed like 15 of the Persona rares, and I think like 5 of the signature cards. And at that point, it's real diminishing returns because the chance are I'm just going to buy a bunch of these boxes and just be doubling up on what I've already got. Like I hit that point where I'm like, I need to find a good place to buy singles because actually buying the packs anymore is not working.
Oh, yeah. And that's the tricky part as well with the way smaller special sets and stuff. It's like you have to get really really lucky because ironically with the normal sets, like when they're like over 100 cards and everything for it, I actually, and I'm not a master set person at all with like pretty much anything I collect, but the Persona 4 set we got way, way, way back in the day, probably like almost, definitely at least over 10 years ago now. Um, that one I master setted, not every rarity, but including every alt art and at least two SPs, I got out of two boxes, which was
Oh
very good
wow.
luck. And it was funny too because I remember when I finally got an SP, it was of Labris, and I remember I'd be like, I would have liked one of the like main party member people a little bit more. And some guy would just he only wanted Labris, and he was like, "Oh, I'll trade you this card." Who was like, and it was a way, way, way more like rare card, but like neither of us are gonna sell it. He just really liked Labris, and he was like, he didn't want this resay, and I'm like, I'll gladly trade down, buddy. Don't worry.
Oh, that's cool. I love when that. Like, I've always been a really big fan of just kind of, you know, trading rarity for rarity. Like, I have this card that I don't want, and you have that card I do want. But the problem is nowadays, most of the people that are like, oh yeah, no, we'll just trade like rarity for rarity. It's like, yeah, well, I'll do that as long as the one that I'm getting is worth more than the one that I'm giving. And I'm like, no, that's not the
Yeah,
point. The point is we're supposed to just be
ironically,
nice.
when you take money out of the situation, it makes the trading aspect of trading cards way more fun because that's how my group of locals who we do all of our Bandai games with. That's how they all are. Normally, if anyone's like, "Oh, I need this card," or "Does anyone have this card?" 9 out of 10 times, if we have it, we're just going to give it to you. It's almost
Yeah.
never a like, oh, I'll sell it to you for this, or I'll do this, or if it is, it's very much of like well below market price, or doing an equal trade that seems fair to everybody, because it's that thing of like everyone here collects, but we all play, so we all know like no one's trying to one up each other, no one's going right away to TCG player.
Yeah, and that's just my favorite way to do it. Like it seems like every year it gets harder to actually pull that off,
Oh yeah.
but it's so much more fun when you can just, like you say, when you can just like do it nicely. It's such a more fun way to do things.
Ironically, that's
I won't be
that's actually
naive.
kind of what has me the most excited about this Weiss set coming out in English because I really don't need them. I think even if I wasn't like planning on buying as many as I'm hoping to or looking into, I would at least probably buy a box or two just because they're not going to be that expensive, especially at launch. And I know it's not going to be like an in-demand product, but I kind of thought with the position I was in with the show, I was like, you know what might be kind of fun would be like getting a case or getting as many boxes as I could, and then just try and find as many good homes for them for people who are interested. I just sell them at cost or whatever plus shipping, and then anything else I have left over, I've got pretty much infinite like giveaways for years and years and years because that's what I did with my old P4 stuff. I had bulk from the original Weiss set of Persona 4 for probably 6 years. I was just giving out to people who would come to shows, watch like the podcast, do live panels and things like that, or meetups. I would just always bring them to people, and it was that thing of like most people don't know about this, let alone collect it. So even just getting one or two cards would like make someone's day.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that. That's stuff like that. Like, those are stories of the community that just make me really happy. I wish there was more of that around.
Yeah, like one of my, ironically, I have, I would say, bootleg SP cards. So what I did was I would bring, when I would interview the voice actors from the games, I would bring them all the cards that they were in. And I'd be like, "Hey, here's this card. If I had an extra, I would give it to them. But then I'd be like, "Hey, here's this gold fine print Sharpie." I'd be like, "What's your favorite card in this set with your art on it?" And then they would sign it. And I have a bunch of those, and I remember one of my favorite memories was I was interviewing the voice actor for Naoto and Chie, and both of them were like, "I really don't want to pick. Can we just sign all of them?" And I'm like, "You go for it. Sign everyone. I'm not." I'm not gonna blame you because again, it's not like I still have every single one of these cards. It's not like I want to have you sign it so I can put it in my. I very rarely ever ask people for signatures on anything, almost ever. But it was kind of one of those things of like, oh, I thought it'd be really fun to like show someone, especially for a lot of these really niche releases. Like most people are probably not bringing these cards up to these voice actors ever in their life to see.
No, I really like that because if I was a voice actor, I would want to see that stuff as well. That would be cool.
Oh, that did lead to my one major regret with that SMT release I told you about. I finally had a chance to show almost all the voice actors who were in. They did a bunch of new cards for Shin Megami Tensei 5 when that had come out. And I went to a meet and greet event in LA last year, and I finally got to bring all of those cards and showed the whole cast. I was like, here's your card, here's who you're in, here's this, so they could finally see them. And the first one I brought it to was the voice actor of Daichi, and I remember I showed it to him, and he was just like, I could tell the second he grabbed it, I was like, hey, I wanted to show you this. He immediately was like, oh my god, I can't believe you got me this. And I was like, oh no, that's literally my only one. I just wanted to just wanted to show you.
Oh, did you tell him?
Oh no, I did, but it was just so funny because I was like, no, I really wanted to show you this because I know you, because I had messaged him before, and I was like, oh, I know he's never seen this, and he didn't get a chance to order one, and it was just one of those things of like, oh, I mean, if I had an extra, I would have gladly given it to you, but yeah, I literally have one of his card.
Oh no!
So I was like, nope, sorry, it's just for show. I'm sorry, I'm realizing now this was a terrible idea. I'm never gonna do this again. So now I've learned if I ever bring something to show someone, make sure if they really like it, you have enough that you can give them.
Oh, that would be mortifying. It's not the same kind of thing, but I did a quiz on stage at a Pokemon regional many years ago, and me and the scorekeepers had not figured out. I thought they were going low to high, but they were actually going high to low. So they told me the wrong winner of the quiz.
Oh
no! And I gave them like I don't know if you remember, they did special 3DSs for when Red and Blue.
Oh
came out
yeah, the with the faceplates.
So I gave them that as a prize, and then I had to go and get it back from them because they hadn't actually won. And like I gave them a Pokemon blanket, but it was not the same.
No.
That was the most, like, all I've done, everything I've done in, like, the whole content creation, that was the most mortifying moment of having to go to them and be like, I'm so sorry, I gave you this amazing prize, it's not yours, I need it back.
Oh, my God.
I felt like such a horrible person. I'm like, I got you a blanket instead, and, like, I knew it wasn't the same.
It'll keep them warm with their tears cooling them down.
Oh, I felt like the most horrible person in the world, man.
So I was going to ask you, I assume, was this either your first set of, like, Weiss cards, or what kind of interested you into importing the Persona 3 set?
So Weiss is kind of like, it's one of those where it's on the English side. I've actually had a bit of a relationship with them. So I did some reveals for the Avatar set, and I did an opening of that. I did some reveals for the Guilty Gear Strive set, which was really cool. And so Weiss, I've done a bit with them, not a huge amount, but I've done some reveals, I've done some openings. We've had a little bit of a relationship here and there. But most of the sets I'm really interested in are actually sets that don't come over. And weirdly, it's been a lot of Disney sets. Oh my
God.
So
the Disney 100 set, my wife and I both really wanted to buy, but that was one of like, I know neither of us were strong enough to, if we bought one, we were never just going to buy one box. It was going to buy, you need to get more,
See, I don't know if it's good or bad. I never found that for a good price, but I did pick up the Pixar set, including all the starter decks. The Star Wars, they reissued like the 2017 set a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So I picked up a couple boxes of that.
And they're really nice art, by the way. Like those ones specifically really are very, nice. Very good.
Yeah. Big fan. Love me some Star Wars. And in the same way, so Persona 3, it's actually like their premium booster, which is why it's smaller boxes, 60 card sets. But they've done a couple of Star Wars and a couple Marvel in the same vein. So I picked a bunch of that up as well. So Weiss is very much a game I drop in and out. I'm not a huge fan like that, although I really like the game. It's another one that plays very differently to a lot of TCGs. But English side, all I've really done is when I've actually been working with them. Japanese side, they've released a bunch of cool sets, but because it doesn't do big numbers on the channel, it has to be it's got to be Marvel, Star Wars, Persona. It's got to be a big set that I'm going to be really into, or I just can't justify it.
For sure.
But I will say, outside of Persona, where I've apparently got very lucky, I've only got one like signed or stamped card. And it was when I bought a box of Pixar, I got a Ratatouille one with like the logo stamped on in gold, and they're beautiful cards.
I love the Disney cards. I will say the license stamps that just have like the fictional logo put on there, always it's just like that one. I'm like, could we have just gotten like Patton Oswalt's grandma to sign it or something like any? I'll take any signature. Like, can we get it from anybody else besides the logo?
I mean, the Persona signatures are just so much better. Actually, I finally found pictures of the SP cards. The protagonist, I think I got two of them actually, but the protagonist signed one I got was the other one with the Koromaru sketch on. So it's the one of the protagonist on like the blue background. And there's just a big space on the card where they've just gone and drawn the dog because they're like, well, there's a big empty space.
You got to draw something on there.
On it.
By the way, I was wrong. Out of the 8 SP cards, 5 of them are the protagonists.
Yeah, well, 6 if you
That's
include...
true. He's on the wide shot one too. So technically, he's practically hogging the whole thing.
Yeah, there's 6 protagonists. And then the wide shot. It's the Aegis card is the only one that doesn't have the protagonist on.
So
it's absurd.
And I mean, like, it is. It's one of those ones of, and I've done a couple videos, and even videos never do it justice. Like, I feel like when you have those big hit cards, especially pulling them, but like really seeing them in person, no amount of HD video or pictures ever do them justice. Especially when you have a card that's either got like either embossment or like texturing or foiling on it, like. Looking at that in person is such a very specific dopamine hit, you know.
And I'm now looking at them again, and I feel super confident. Done and Dusted is the name of the card. It's the best of the special rares.
That one is that one.
I feel super confident.
I trust me. The fact that is like that. If I could trade one, I wouldn't involve trading mine. But like that was the next one I really wanted. I always love those really cool, like anything that kind of plays off because ironically, Weiss with Persona, I think they kind of avoided their problem they normally get, or not a problem, like criticism they get with a lot of card games, and we sort of talked about this with Union Arena of very often they will just kind of be screenshots of either the game, and every now and then you'll maybe see some original art with them, but it's very kind of few and far between. And with the Persona set they did, outside of those 2 illustrations I talked about with the green clock for Aegis and the protagonist, everything was all in-game assets. It was all drawn art and everything there, and like it looks cool. There's like, because basically you have cards with the heroes, their persona. They're all out attack cards. The sideways ones, I think those all look really, really good, especially when you get the rare version of those.
Yeah, I got like one of those as a Persona rare, and I'm very upset because they're probably the best cards looking as Persona.
Well, it's nice too because when you kind of line them all up next to each other, they all like it's very it looks very aesthetically fitting, which is nice.
Yeah. But that was my big criticism of the set, though. Like, I love the set. Obviously, I bought a bunch of it. I've got it all in a bind. It's all very lovely. I don't like recycled
100%.
art. Like when I see a set like this, I'm going to look for the artist credit, because if there is an artist credit, it's either going to be a generic credit for every card, or they've actually gone and got artists in. And a lot of the time that's a way, like for instance with Transformers. I don't want to be mean to the game. I did love the game, but I knew from set 1 that Wizards were not taking Transformers seriously. They didn't have enough faith in the game. Because in set 1, all the art was recycled. The character cards were using art from a defunct mobile game, and the event cards were using comic book art. They didn't commission, I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was no new card art, at least, for anything in the first set, which is a classic move of, we're not investing too heavily. We want to see if it sells, and then if it sells, we'll put more money in.
And in fairness to the companies, it is very expensive to commission all new art for a whole set.
Oh, absolutely.
Even One Piece did it. You look at any other set that's not OP01. OP01 looks like it came out of a whole different other card game.
And I have been very clear in a lot of my videos. It was the first lot of starter decks in OP01. There was a lot of just generic
screenshots.
Oh, it's a screenshot from the anime. And those cards, a lot of them, they've since had alternate arts with new artwork. And it always makes me really happy because they're like, look, we had to do the rubbish version of this card. Here is a nice version of the same card. And they're kind of like fixing it as they go along. But I will say, going back to, the Persona set with Weiss, it isn't new art, but I think because it's Persona 3 and because they've done a really good job of kind of picking the art, it doesn't look like Union Arena, some of those sets where it's just, here's a bunch of screenshots from the anime or the game. It doesn't look like that. It looks so much nicer because although it's existing art, they've gone, what cool artwork do we have that we can use for a card game rather than just, hey, let's grab some screenshots.
Yeah, it at least feels very cohesive, which almost kind of leans into the fact that I think it was smart of them to do it as a special set and not try to make a main set out of it. But it does kind of transition into the other thing that's ironically coming out this month before the English set, is last year, and the marketing for this has been so weird, but last year Bandai announced during, ironically, Bandai World Card Fest, in Japan only, very specific everybody, only Japan, they are getting a starter deck and a booster release, so a whole booster box set for not just Persona 3, but Persona 3 Reload plus the DLC that came out, which the Weiss set did not have the DLC stuff either. And what was funny was when they announced it, there was nothing really to show. It was like, okay, they're doing a collab. Not that surprising.
I was so grumpy.
Well, I mean, I think like it at least was one of those things of like, you could maybe say, oh, well, maybe it'll come, but Battle Spirits has collaborated with so many brands that haven't come up to us that it's kind of hard to really like say. But it was just like one of those things of like, I'm not going to be upset if it does or doesn't come till we see the cards, Because it's like, I don't want to be upset about something if it ends up just being a bunch of screenshots like the Weiss set. Because I'm like, oh, it's probably just going to be like that, but it plays in Battle Spirits.
It's not. Well, this is...
what's funny is I'm going to say, they announced it, and much like how every other card game does, when they started showing shots off of it, probably 2 months ago at this point, they were showing a bunch of in-game art. Just like the Weiss. I was like, okay, this makes sense. And then, like, out of nowhere, probably in January or late December, they started showing off all this new art, and they've been continuously showing it off. And I'm like, where did all of this new art come from? It's like, they've probably, like, revealed at least, like, 20 or 30 original art pieces, and they're all absolutely stunning.
Yeah, so I was watching the Bandai stream because, massive card game nerd. And they announced this, and I was like, that looks amazing, tell me more. And there was nothing. It was just, it's come. I didn't even make a video about it because there was nothing. It was just, we are making a Persona 3 set, we'll be back later. And like you say, if you go on the Japanese website and you look at the page for the Battle Spirits Persona 3, it just shows the generic character art on the cards, and it's very unexciting. But I follow Battle Spirits on Twitter, and every day they're revealing new cards. And again, it's the bottom right-hand corner. It's that illustration credit. They started coming through with credits for new illustrators. And like you say, the art is just brilliant. And this is surprising to me because Weiss coming through and doing a set, you look at it and you're like, well, okay, they've done Persona stuff before. It's kind of a special booster, not a main booster. So it's a little bit easier. They're using all in-game assets, essentially. Like, this kind of makes sense. But Battle Spirits, this is Collaboration Booster 33, I think. So they do this a lot. But they basically do a lot of Bandai stuff. So, Gundam.
Kamen Rider.
They did a couple of Digimon sets. Kamen Rider, yeah. And then, you got stuff like Ultraman, which isn't Bandai, but it's very quintessentially Japanese TV/manga. That is generally what Battle Spirits do. They don't tend to do video games, and they've not done Persona before. And we know that Weiss has got this relationship with Persona, but apparently it must have been a non-exclusive license. And seeing Battle Spirits doing this is wild to me. And it's not like we've never seen it. Like, where are we going? So Demon Slayer had a Build Divide set. Build Divide being another card game like Weiss, and, where they're doing different properties every set. So, Demon Slayer had Build Divide and Union Arena. We saw that UVS had Attack on Titan, just like Weiss had Attack on Titan. So it's not that we've never seen the same property in two different card games, but Battle Spirits would, like, I would have expected a UVS Persona, a Build Divide Persona. These, I would have been like, okay, cool. Battle Spirits completely took me by surprise. And the biggest issue I've got is I love Battle Spirits. Like, I like Weiss Schwarz, it's a cool game. I love Battle Spirits. And I've been ignoring the Japanese version of the game because there's too many releases. It's been going for too many years. It's too complicated. I'm late to the party. I've not bought any Japanese Battle Spirits. I have been a very good boy until they announce this. And I can't ignore, like this one, I'm going to buy a bunch of boxes, start a deck, and all these Japanese sites I use for Pokemon and One Piece singles. Oh, you better believe they sell Battle Spirit singles. So I'm going to be able to pick up all the cards I missed from the boxes. I'm going to be able to pick up on these single sites. And this set is going to be a big one. I'm going to go hard on this set because it's not just Persona. It's Persona in a game I love with all this new artwork. And Battle Spirits is done really well. Like, Battle Spirit Saga in the West has not been a smashing success. I don't think that's an unfair statement.
Hold on, I got to pick my jaw up from the
sales. Floor. Yeah, it's sad. I'm sorry. Like, just to be clear, I love Battle Spirit Saga. I was at the launch event in London. I was one of the very first people to play that game competitively. I casted a Pro Tour November 23 over in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And, I spent 2 weeks learning the meta. And I mean, it's all up there on Wossy Plays. Both days are up there. Go to the live tab. You can watch 2 days of me casting Battle Spirit Saga. I adore that game. Mechanically, might be my favorite TCG from a pure mechanic standpoint. Battle Spirit Saga is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But the game hasn't really taken off. But in Japan, Battle Spirits has been going very strong for many, many, many years. Phenomenally successful game. And I know I've been ranting for a little while now, but I am so over the top hyped for this. Like, the Weiss set was cool. I loved it. It was really nice. But I think the Battle Spirit set is just on a whole nother level. And just to be clear, there is like zero chance it gets an English release. Like, if you want this, you're buying the Japanese version.
Thankfully, it at least is not that expensive. And the yen is at least still in a pretty bad shape that if you want a box, I mean, I think what are boxes going for, like, right now? They're like, I feel like they're selling for like under 50.
So, Amazon Japan, so the retail, they're readily available on Amazon Japan. The retail on them at the moment, we're talking about 50, I think it's 5,400 yen-ish. So not including postage, you're talking $35 a box.
Yeah, which is not bad.
It's not bad at all.
Because unlike the Weiss set, this is a full like box, like multiple packs, multiple cards in there. And also, the crazy thing is, they haven't shown, and we haven't seen anything. We'll probably see some stuff soon in the next week or so. I'm excited to start seeing what these look like in person, like what the holo textures look like.
Yeah, and they're assigned cards. Battle Spirits. No, wait, Battle Spirits don't.
Battle
do
Spirits does
cards.
not do signed. So yeah, the most
don't.
it'll be is like their secret rare equivalent.
It's gonna be. The only question of this set is, do I do that thing where I actually go and pick up the expensive singles to really fill out the binder? Like, that's the only question for me with this set. And it's actually been kind of fun because I've been learning Japanese for a couple of years now, and it started off, I want to translate Pokemon cards. because I cover Japanese Pokemon cards, and I'm sick and tired of sending messages to my friends who can read Japanese, the really basic questions like, wait, is this basic energy or any energy? Like really simple questions. So I started off learning for that reason, and I can now do that on One Piece cards. And one of my kind of goals over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to teach myself to translate the Battle Spirits cards so that I can actually read these.
There's
cards.
There's a lot of text on those cards, though.
There are some that aren't very text heavy. I'm going to start with them and then work up. But really, it's just remind myself of the rules of Battle Spirits. See what rules exist in Japan that aren't in Battle Spirit Saga. And as soon as you've got like a handle on the rules, you'll look up a few things initially. But a lot of the verbiage, a lot of the kanji are going to repeat themselves. And then you get into a bit of a flow. You do the first 20 cards, and after that, they become a lot easier. It's going to be fun. I'm genuinely looking forward to it.
How long have you been either trying to learn or been studying Japanese?
That's an awkward question. Because in theory, 3-4 years, but I was doing a really bad job of it. So about just under a year ago, a friend of mine was just like, look, I've been telling you to get a tutor for ages. So here is my tutor. Here is her email. She is expecting you to email. Get in touch with her. And he found me a tutor over in Nagoya who's a lovely lady. She's absolutely brilliant. I taught for 13 years, so I'm quite good at seeing good teachers. And she's one of those teachers, she just won't correct my mistakes. She'll just I'll say something, and then she'll pull a, oh, not quite right face. And she will just sit there until I recognize and fix the problem, which is a way better way to learn than being told what you've done wrong, at least as far as I'm concerned. So, really going full on, the past year I've been really accelerating. I learned a bunch of kanji and vocab and basic grammar, 2-3 years ago, but I never practiced speaking. And I was doing really specific things like reading Pokemon cards, and I just wasn't putting it all together. So somewhere between 1 and 4 years, depending how you look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, learning Japanese, I feel like is so different from everyone, especially from an outsider's perspective. Like for me, I had started 2010. I did it for about 4 years in school in person, and ironically, I felt like I had actually learned more through in-person experience of trying to understand conversations more, but I was a lot better at, I can probably hold a conversation with a 6-year-old in Japanese, but I'm at least a lot more confident in my reading and translating skill that way, and that definitely kind of shows from importing games, reading translations on the fly, doing things like that. I pick up the written part of it a lot more, which is ironic because Lord knows there's about 1.5 million kanji out there, which I'm sure I will never learn all of the kanji out there.
But that's the big challenge, right? Because at some point Persona 6 is coming.
Oh, yes, it is.
And that is not going to be a game that I want to... and it might be that, Atlas do the thing where a lot of people do nowadays, where they go, well, it's 2027, 2028, whenever it is. We really should be looking at a worldwide release here.
Oh, I feel like at this point, yeah, we've at least been committed to worldwide releases since the first big one was 2021, and I think they've been doing that so consistently that I feel like they would really have to have some drastic reason not to. But no, I mean, back in the day, I feel like even from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 era of if you're not importing this game, you're going to have to wait about 12 to 18 months before this comes out.
I want to be prepared. I don't want Persona 6 to be out in Japan and be oh, because 5 didn't get a worldwide release, did it?
No, 5 and Royal did not, but those had about 5 was let's see, October, November, December. 5 was a 7-month wait, and then even Royal was almost another 6 months.
But that's kind of my point. I bought Persona 5 day 1 in the West, but that's 7 months after it comes out in Japan. I don't think I'm going to, just to be clear, I don't think I'm actually going to get to that stage by the time Persona 6 comes out. But I want to at least give it a darn good go because, I don't want a new Persona game a new main Persona game to be coming out and I'm waiting 6 months to play it. That doesn't sound like fun.
I'm manifesting it for you. Persona 7, when that comes out, you'll be a Japanese English teacher. I'm calling it. We're going to put it in. We're manifesting it for you.
7. Now, 7 I feel a lot more confident for. 7 gives me a nice big buffer.
But yeah, so mostly kind of wanted to talk about, ironically, in an audio-only form for everybody, but please, I will include as many as I can in the thumbnail for this, both of the TCGs for you all to check out the new art. But please check this out if you're curious. I'm sure, especially with the boxes you've pre-ordered, are you planning on doing a video, or not sure yet?
Oh, there'll be an opening. It's the problem with I wanted to do a news video when it was revealed, but there was nothing on which to do a video. And then the news kind of trickled out in a way where there was never a good point to do hey, Battle Spirits is doing a Persona 3
Oh yeah,
set,
pretty much at
really
this point,
annoying,
it's
so I
like,
wanted
might as well
to.
wait the 2 weeks till the release comes out.
So that'll all be pre-ordered, and shortly after it comes out, I'll have my boxes, I'll do an opening, and that'll be my chance to kind of talk through and be like, look how cool these cards are.
Oh, you know what? This does count as news. Did you see they announced what the box toppers are finally?
Oh, I did not see the box
So
toppers.
people might call these boring, but I think this is really fun, but also evil because you will never get them all unless you're a sicko. The box toppers are every one of the 22 tarot cards.
Oh, that's so mean.
And I was like, that's brilliant. Because, like, they're still real playable cards, but they're exclusive. Like, they look just like the cards from the game. But then you realize, oh my god, having one of 22 box toppers is beyond devilish.
Oh, 22 box toppers is too many. But I feel like, again, if I go to these
Oh
singles
yeah,
sites,
for sure. No one's gonna try and charge like $20 for a chariot card. Like it's not like they're gonna like. Ironically, I don't think the box toppers will be that pricey. So hopefully the singles market will be kind of fair.
where did they reveal this? I did not see
This
news.
was I at least saw it on their website, but it should be still up on their Twitter. I'll see if I can find it. I'll send it to you.
Is it Persona or Battle
The
Spirits?
Battle Spirits Twitter is the only place I've been seeing them at.
I've checked the Battle Spirits Twitter today and not seen
This was
it.
a
That's
couple
really
days ago,
bad
so
if
it
I've
wasn't
missed
like new, but like because they had kept it pretty quiet for a while. I was like, I'm surprised they hadn't shown what the box toppers were.
that. Oh, that's kind. I kind of love that. Honestly, that's kind of genius.
For listeners out there, you
I'm
can't
down
tell
with
he's
that.
just ordered 5 more boxes. He just added more to the.
Oh, it's so bad. Like the problem is there's so many TCGs I'm into, and like I have to be so careful. Oh, here we go. Okay, they're genius. I love them, and they do look exactly like they do in the game. Yeah, but like, there's so much. I've got to be really careful.
It's
as
a
to kind of
slippery. It's a
what
slippery
I'm
slope.
investing in. It really is. And this goes back to right to the beginning of our conversation. We just got to the point with Digimon where it wasn't paying back well enough, and the game wasn't pulling me like it did initially, and I had to drop off of that, as sad as it made me. But yeah, Persona 3 Battle Spirits, like, I don't think if you're going to give me any Persona collab with a Japanese game that can actually do it, I'd pick Battle Spirits over Weiss, over Build Divide. I think Battle Spirits, I love the design of the cards and like the new artwork and all of that. And I'm sorry, but now they're doing the tarot cards as box toppers. They've proven they were the right choice here.
So I've asked because I've had a couple of chances before. I will never forget when Union Arena first got announced. I remember asking a friend of mine. I went, okay, off the record, I just need you to tell me, will these ever come out in English? And they were like, at this time, no way in hell. They were like, because it's such a, and that's kind of part of the reason why it's not even available worldwide. It is such a licensing nightmare. I can only imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Just with all the different IPs and only for doing one set, maybe a year tops for each one of these things, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, licensing in general, let alone worldwide, that then when they finally ended up coming out and their release was so different, I was kind of like, oh, I kind of like that it's different because it makes me feel like there's a chance that there's going to be English exclusive sets or maybe even sets that we haven't seen in Japan Because like a good example is while we're not caught up to date with Union Arena, the One Punch Man set is a worldwide release, which is very interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I'm not a One Punch Man fan, but that's still really cool that that's
oh, I
coming
know. If it was a
worldwide.
series I cared
Like
about, it'd be much cooler. But I'm like, there's a lot of ideas there because we haven't seen as many of them, but they've been leaning into games a lot more. And ironically, one of their bigger sets from last year was Nikkei was a big one, and Arknight was a really, really big one. And I was thinking about what would be some other not Bandai related things that they could do, and I was like, probably considering they did so much work for Battle Spirits, they definitely would, because they couldn't just swap them over to another game. It wouldn't really make sense. But it does kind of make me more hopeful that maybe we could see other things, because I finally started the process of finishing Metaphor this week, and I was, ironically, as I've been prepping for this conversation, like, that's a game with some amazing artwork that I think you could have some
Awesome.
really, like, you could have a really cool one-off set for something like Metaphor of like all the different like archetypes, all the characters, all the like 2D and 3D animations they do, because they do a lot of different art styles and stuff with it. Like I think there's at least 4 different main artists. Like all the characters are done by Soejima, who does all the Persona characters. All the mechs are done by, I forget his name, but the guy who does all the mech stuff for Evangelion. He did all of the mech runners in Metaphor, and then like how all the enemies who are human are based off Hieronymus Bosch, the old like Renaissance artist. Like so, it's a very weird mesh of art styles and like watercolor looks and everything with it. And I'm like, oh, I would love to see this like on a really really cool like card game.
Ah, see, I would love that. My only issue with that is I picked up Metaphor before Christmas, and it's a kind of game like a Persona where I don't want to start it when I'm like, I'll do a few evenings and I'm going to this event, and if you like,
you want to commit
nice
to
run
it.
of time. Yeah, I want to give myself like I'm never going to have like 6 weeks without going to an event probably for the rest of the year now, but I want to have I want to have a decent run where it's kind of like, I'll take a few days off, but then I'm back and I've got 3-4 hours a night for a week and all that. So Metaphor's just sitting there, and I know I'm going to love it. There is almost no chance I'm not going to love that game. But I've got European Championships coming out for Pokemon in 2 weeks' time. And then when I come back from that, Monster Hunter Wilds is out. And I've got to do day one Monster Hunter.
Are you a big Monster Hunter guy?
Yes, but like so where was like Persona? I picked up Persona 4 on Vita.
Oh, I knew
And
I was going to
back
be friends
then-
with you already. All right, keep going.
So and then so the story basically goes, my wife knows I'm a massive nerd, so shortly after we got together, one of the first birthdays, she bought me a PlayStation Vita because she's brilliant and I didn't have one. And she was like, "You're a nerd, you'll like this." So I picked that up, and you do what you do. You go online and you go best PlayStation Vita games. I was like, every list Persona 4 Golden. And I was like, right, if it's the best game, I'm getting that. Bought it, played it, absolutely obsessed. I was like, right, look online. Okay, so it's only really free. 1 and 2 are not the same, but I need to play Persona 3. Oh, it's on PSP. That's convenient. I have one of those. I bought it on eBay, brand new, for 20 quid. It's like $25. It was right before Persona kind of went a bit silly. And nowadays, you pay about 100 quid for a second-hand copy of that. Back then, 20 quid, brand new, sorted. And then I played Persona 3. And at that point, I'm like, I'm hooked. And since then, the rhythm games, Persona 4 Ultimax, Q and Q2, Scramble, Tactica. Like, if Persona game's coming out, I'm picking it up. I'm rolling through it. Monster Hunter, I picked up Rise. Adored it. Hated the demo. Played the demo. Hated the demo.
The demos are not they're
at
not
all.
newcomer friendly for sure.
No, absolutely hated it. For some reason, bought the game anyway, despite really not liking the demo.
Man, you really hate your wallet, do you?
But everything I read and heard about it, I'm like, I know I hated the demo, but this sounds like my kind of game. So I was like, I'm going to ignore the demo and that's how bad the demo was. I'm going to buy it anyway. I'm sure I'm going to love it. Did love it. And then I did like Stories 2 and World. So I'm like new Monster Hunter fan, but I think I've put about 200 hours into Rise. I can't get enough of that game. It's so good. So I think it's going to be Wilds, and then as soon as I'm done with Wilds, I'm pretty sure there's nothing else coming out. So when Wilds is done, that's when I'm hitting Metaphor, and I'm going for it.
What did you pick it up on?
It's going to be great. PS5.
I will say that is the right way to play it. Prepare yourself, though. I cannot be more confident when I say it is leaps and bounds better than Persona 5. I don't know what you think your favorite is, but it's that is you can really tell they took their time with that game, and it's like my complaints are so minor. Everything I love about that game, it's them doing what they do at the best ability, but it's just in a completely new IP and in a whole new world, but it still plays like the old games, so you still have that kind of familiar unit with how it plays. Cannot recommend enough. It's so good.
Oh, I'm a little bit excited about that. I don't see any realistic way that I don't love it.
I mean, listen,
Like,
they've already got better voice acting. There's like I think tops 2 English voice actors in it. Everyone else is non-American. Which, it's like, listen, how many other JRPGs am I going to have people with Welsh accents? Very little. I've looked.
Yeah, that's fair. There's a few of them out there. The problem is I also picked up, because I never actually played SMT5, so I picked up Vengeance on the Switch. I don't know when I'm getting to that. That's going to have to be a travel game.
That's a very good portable one, though, because you can save anywhere with it. That's one, ironically, because it's not as story-heavy. Pick it up, you can play for 3 hours, put it down, play it for 30 minutes, it's still just as good.
Okay, that's cool. That's coming up. That might even be the one I go to after KOTOR on Switch, honestly. But like this is going to be a year where I go away from just Persona and I start looking a bit more kind of Atlas, outside of just strict Persona, because there's no way I love Persona as much as I do, and there aren't other RPGs they're making that I'm also just going to absolutely adore. Like, there's no way that could happen.
No, and Vengeance is a great one as well, especially just because it is so different with it being open world, even compared to the fact that ironically a Switch game has like a bigger open world than like Metaphor is very funny, but I think it goes to complimenting them because of how different they all play. Even though like they all look very similar, they all play very, very differently.
Yeah, that has to be a hand. I mean, first I played Persona 4 in free handheld, and for big RPGs, I do, if there is a way to play them well handheld, I want to go for that, because it's so much easier to find time to pick up a handheld for a little bit than actually sit down in front of the telly and find that time.
No,
But Metaphor, I've not tried it on Steam Deck. I'm willing to bet it doesn't run well enough.
You know what? It's okay. They've done a lot of...
Really?
Yeah, it runs well enough, for sure. It's definitely like...
Don't tell me that.
Ironically, because of how old the engine is, it's not actually that demanding of a game. It's still running on the original Persona 5 engine, which was all the way back even in 2015 when it came out. It's running on a PS3 game engine, so it's really not that technically demanding.
Oh, maybe I should have got it on Steam Deck then. Because I do a lot of tracks. I live in a very where I live and what I do are completely incompatible. So, we'll go to Utrecht for like One Piece Euros, for instance. That is a 1 hour flight from London and then like a 20-minute train. It takes me 5 hours to get to London to start that very short journey.
No, I do. I do not envy that. I will say it's been slowly going on sale. Keep an eye on it. You might be able to find it. I've seen it as low as at least about 45, 50 quid recently.
Okay, that could be doable. And I'm assuming it doesn't cross save.
No, that'd be too easy. That'd be too. I'll tell you what, it does cross save from PS4 to PS5. That's it. So if you really listen, if you want, you could do is buy a PS4 copy and then remote play that to your Vita, and then you could play the game.
I played weirdly because when Persona 5 came out, obviously it is now on Switch, but it wasn't.
Oh yeah, for many years.
I played a weirdly large amount of Persona 5 on my
Yep.
Vita, doing it like
Same
remote
here.
play because it's so much more
I
convenient.
mean, and also it looked so good on that screen. It looked.
Yeah, it ran really well.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, yeah. It's go back. It's that old janky engine. You'd hope so. Well, Ross, thank you for letting me steal you for way too long. What is it? Almost like 2 a.m. over there.
1:15 in the morning.
But who?
To be fair, I usually go bed about 1:30, so this is, finish this up,
My
get to
my
bed.
wife told me I came home, she like had like a little bowl of food she'd cooked up, put some drinks aside, computer was on. She's like, "Here you go. Get started so that way you can finish as quickly as possible." She's like, I bet you won't be done till after 7." I said, "Honey, this will not go that long." It is now 7:15. It's now 7:15. She always like listen. I love spending time with her. But I've never seen her. She takes it so personally when I do these long shows. Like you would think I'm just in here being like, you know what? Let's push it another half hour. She can wait. It's okay. She's good for it. So, Ross, thank you for coming on. Thank you for
Thanks for having me, man.
reigniting the joy of talking Digimon after 900 years. But for everyone out there, where do you want them to follow you? Where can they throw the Patreon bucks at you? Where do you want them to find you?
The easiest place is to find me on Twitter at the Wossy. Not Wossy. Wossy is a very famous like TV personality in the UK, so I have to be the Wossy. Every so often, somebody really famous follows me, thinking I'm Jonathan Ross, and then unfollows me really quickly because they find out I am in fact not.
I was
Jonathan
so
Ross.
excited to have Jonathan Ross on the podcast today. My hopes were very disappointed.
Sorry. And then on YouTube, if you're into Pokemon, PTCG Radio, Pokemon Trading Card Game Radio, or pretty much any other card game Wossy plays, WOSSY plays. And that's just where I just talk about basically any card game that takes my fancy. I did a video on Altered today. Also, side note, Altered is great.
I saw you just post that. I didn't get a chance to watch. I've seen some people open it so far. It looks really, really interesting. I haven't
So
had a
good.
chance to watch it. You can break my heart. I didn't get to watch your Gundam video. Did you get any alt arts? That's
No,
okay.
standard
I mean,
box.
considering how hard any of them are at this point, the SRs are nice enough that I can pretend they're hits.
Yeah, no alts, didn't get the alternate art resources, but I got one of every rare, I got one of every legendary, which apparently is actually seeded, so that was guaranteed. I didn't know that. But I got one of every card from the beta set, and I got the beta set. So that was the main thing. That was what I was really worried about.
Now we just have to hope that it is not this desperate come July when it comes out.
There is a decent chance. Could be
Never
big.
say never. Any things coming up outside? Yeah. So I forget when is the event again that you'll be doing the meet and greet at?
That is 2 weeks on, 2 weeks on Saturday and Sunday. That is in London at the Excel. That's the Pokemon European International Championships. I went last year and I didn't cast it. It's the first time I've been and not been casting it, which was bizarre. But I did North American last year instead, so no complaints. It was wonderful. But this year I'm casting it, but I'm taking an hour off of casting to do a meet and greet, which is bizarre, but hopefully people will turn up. And if anyone's going to EUIC, please come and say hi, because I am terrified no one is going to turn up. And then I'll be at various events casting and all of that throughout the rest of the year. Honestly, most of what I'm going to be doing, I don't even know yet. I'm having various conversations with various people about trying to put stuff in motion, but nothing has been agreed yet.
I look forward to seeing you simulcasting the Neopets 2025 TCG tournament later this year. Never say never.
I'll learn
Never say, never say never. But yes, Ross, thank you again for coming on, and everybody, all of his links as well as ours will be in the show notes. So if you made it through the world's longest intro and still got to the Atlas discussion, please leave a comment. Let me know that you're patient. I know you all are. It just helps the lovely, lovely algorithm that's out there. But big shout outs to everybody for listening. Thank you again, especially everybody who supports us over on patreon.com patreon.com/SMTN. So thank you all so much. Ross, thank you for coming on and talking with me for way too long. I will let you get back to your life, and hopefully I will get the chance to give you an overly expensive Pokemon card to scribble on one day.
Yay! Thanks for having me, buddy. This was fun.
Hey everybody, Spencer here. Just wanted to give a quick little thanks and shout out to all of the Patreon supporters as well. So, while we are at the end of the show, I do want to give a big special shout out and thank you to each and every one of our members on patreon.com/SMTN. That is patreon.com/SMTN. It's the best way to follow us as well as get the show early. There'll be giveaways and just have me read your name at the end of every show. For all the $1 and up members, you get the show early. For every $5 and up member, that's how you get me to say your name at the end. So before we get out of here, big shout outs and thanks once again and always to our executive producers. We've got Twist, John Massey, Crazy Sloth, Michael Wilson, Budweiser Tall Cans, Carlos Hernandez, Cross Ren, Wenny, Jagingus, Goro Cero, Solaire, Stephen Yip, and Patrick Dissart. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day, week, night, morning, whatever it is, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.